Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. You are here at Athearn's Train Tuesdays. I'm your host, Jim, or James, if you will, and we've got Janek over here next to me. Say hi, Janek.
Hi guys. I'm not the host. I'm just some guy who keeps showing up here.
Yeah, he's actually the guy that does a lot of the work with what we're going to be talking about today. So rather than just some guy that's crazy about trains and gets excited about different paint schemes, Janek's actually going to talk to us about said paint schemes. So last week we talked a little bit about all the great releases, including those cabooses. We talked a lot about that. We're going to talk about something. I know some of you guys are like, man, you're coming out with all this UP stuff. What about the rest of us? Well, don't worry. We haven't forgotten you. We've got some great stuff from some great roads I know you guys have heard of, and maybe a few that you haven't heard of or haven't seen a lot of. So, man, you know what? Let me just start getting that sheet out. And Janek, if you want to tell us a little bit about the SD40-2s that we're coming out with.
Sure. So, like we mentioned a couple weeks ago, we are offering Union Pacific SD40-2s, which the so-called Fast 40 8000 class is what ran with the Centennials. And we're also offering a couple of the modern era sort of repainted in the lightning stripe with the yellow frame units for Union Pacific. And we talked about that briefly. As you can see, the yellow frame stripe units are different. The 1574 has a shield on the nose, whereas the 1923 has the wings. It also has the remote control strobes on the cab, so that'll be a neat feature when you get those flashing for yard service. And then, of course, a couple of paint scheme variations on the 8000 class down below. And those are what you run at the Centennials in a Fast 40 sandwich. So Centennial SD40-2 Centennial is how they would usually run those units.
Pretty cool. This was a slightly different earlier paint scheme you were saying. So this would be what, Janek? Late 60s, early 70s?
That paint scheme, I think the era says down there, but that's a 1970s era paint scheme. I don't know exactly when they switched from the small lettering to the big lettering. I'm sure if you go on one of those websites, utahrails.net is the one that comes to mind. That's a great UP resource. And they have all the information about paint schemes on there.
So, yeah, you've not only got just the Union Pacific, you've got you've got four distinct different paint schemes to match whatever era you're modeling in. And I guess, some of us that don't really model the UP forget how many variations, even though that's probably one of the oldest, most common paint schemes on a diesel locomotive.
It didn't really change much since it was introduced. They were minor things, but they kept the yellow, gray, and red pretty much the whole time.
Very nice. Let's see what else we've got in the lineup.
Yeah, we got a bunch more stuff here. Maybe, like you said, some ones that maybe some people haven't heard of. I know personally, I've never seen the Rapid City Pierre and Eastern in operation, but I did look up some videos of this operation when I was doing the research, and it's a neat operation. They have some really cool motive power, including these two SD40-2s, which you see here, and they are different as far as some of the minor spotting features. If you look at The rear number boards, for example, the 3454 has a totally different style. And that's just one thing I noticed on these.
Yeah, no, now that you've pointed that out, yeah, I do notice that. That's a slightly different. And I mean, probably, do we know much about where these locomotives originally came from?
These locomotives were, I believe, originally Dakota, Minnesota, and Eastern. Not originally, but that's what they were before. And then before that, you'd have to go and look online. I'm not sure what they were before they were DM&E, but they're definitely third hand, at least, at this point in their lifetime.
So this is a nice offering for a Class 2 railroad. And I remember earlier when we were talking about these, you were saying just because they are of a certain area or railroad doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be within the network, if you will. So you might see one of these locomotives in the same family line, the Genesee and Wyoming line, but it could be lettered for another line. So if you do any type of Genesee and Wyoming railroading, you might want to pick some of these up.
Yeah, they've been known to move power around to the various component railroads. So you could definitely see that.
And speaking of that, we've had another Genesee and Wyoming line. This is the Arizona and California.
Yeah, this one I'm a little bit more familiar with because I have actually seen them a couple times. They interchange with the BNSF at Katie's, and they have a really nice set of motive power as well, including those green and cream SD40-2s. I think they're called something else now, but that's what the body is. And I've always liked that paint scheme.
That is a cool paint scheme. That it's kind of sad to see that go because that was definitely an eye-catching paint scheme, and it showed up really well.
Yeah, now that they're owned by Genesee Wyoming, they're probably going to be repainted into this scheme before too long. These two particular units are former Union Pacific units.
Oh, okay.
They are late production units with the Q fans and the bulges on the dynamic brake hatch.
Very nice. And again, like we were saying earlier, I mean, even though it is part of a family system, there's subtle differences here. I noticed the ones before had a white top. These have a black top, and of course, these being a UP, former owners were UP, they're going to have slightly different details than the former that we just showed.
Yeah. And I've actually seen one of the Arizona, California SD45-2s on a BNSF train running from Barstow to Katie's. I think that BNSF does maintenance for Arizona and California in Barstow. So there's an excuse to run one of these units dead in tow as part of the BNSF train.
Yeah, so I mean that's the beauty of if you're into modern railroading, you're going to see some of that bleed over, I guess you could say. You're going to see even short lines, like you were saying, on a Class 1. So, yeah, I mean.
Hang on, guys. I lost my camera. Let me see if I can get it back.
Let's see.
Am I back?
Now you are.
All right. I'm on my backup camera, so sorry about the light.
No worries.
I just had an issue with my other camera, so.
So yeah, again, that's a neat road name to invest in, especially if you're, either part of the country. And like you said, you've seen the Arizona and California with BNSF power. So And I mean, let's be honest, we see, Genesee and Wyoming locomotives all over the country now. They're pretty prolific, I guess you could say.
Yes. Every corner of the United States and a lot of other countries as well.
So the next ones that we've got, we're going to go a little bit north. And we're going to see the Canadian Pacific. And coming from New England, I remember seeing quite a few of these, mainly over former Delaware and Hudson territory. This is a really eye-catching scheme that almost like a fire engine red with the dual flags, the Can-Am style flags.
Yeah, I like
really, really nice.
And
go ahead.
One really cool thing about these that I'll mention is that we just got ourselves an official System Red paint chip from Canadian Pacific. So the red on these is going to be the most accurate red that we've ever had on these units because it's straight from Canadian Pacific.
Very nice. And when we're talking in that type of manner, we're basically meaning these are going to be exactly as they would have been, the day they left the paint shops, because we're actually using that actual paint chip. So any type of weathering or fading is onto the modeler to do.
Right.
These are brand new as they left the paint shop.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if you mentioned, but these are former Sioux Line units, which is why they are non-dynamic. And so they are basically fresh 1990s era repaints, and some of them lasted like this for a good 20 years or more. So
yeah, no, it's a really cool eye-catching scheme, and again, you would have seen, like I said, these are former Sioux Line, so would have seen them probably in the northern parts of the Midwest, former Sioux area, and of course out where I was in New England, we saw them up in Vermont and parts of New York State. So again, another model that has a pretty good reach.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's see what else we've got in here. Well, now we're going to go south. We're going to go way south. We've got some. Help me out, Janek. How do you pronounce this company's name? Is it Ferromex?
Ferromex. In Spanish, there would be much more of a roll on the R, but I am not going to even try. I'm going to embarrass myself if I try. But for the English way of saying it is what I've heard is Ferromex. So. And
you've got one railroad here, but we've got two schemes. You've got the new scheme, which is that really very eye-catching gray and red. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the former NDM scheme.
Yeah. And when I was doing the research on these, what I found is that more often not, the paint schemes are all mixed up with each other. You'll get 2 or 3 of the new ones, and then maybe you'll have one of the patched two-tone blue units thrown in there as well. So you'll be able to recreate that pretty nicely with 3 of each that we're offering here.
And this is a line that I'd say only recently has gotten some love in the industry. It's kind of nice to see these. You don't really see Ferromex much in the model railroad world, and it's one that we've certainly had requests for too.
Yeah, and they do make trips north of the border. I especially see them tucked in as part of Union Pacific trains. I saw one in Tehachapi a couple years ago on a UP train. So they definitely do make appearances.
Really, really neat locomotives, and really, again, we say we watch your comments, we listen to your comments. This is proof positive of that. We had some comments and suggestions for the Ferromex line, and so we do listen. So let me see. I wonder if we've got anything that both of us would have seen from California and Illinois. Oh, here we go. Starting to see some green. I'm going to admit, and Janek, you know this, I am a New Englander, but I have a real fond, happy place for the Burlington Northern. I'm more of a CB&Q fan, but it's funny, the more time that passes and that cascading green is slowly becoming a memory, it seems like the more we miss those lines, isn't it?
Well, and you could be a BN fan in the 1970s, which is a lot different than a BN fan in the 1990s. Whereas before it was either you're just a BN fan.
Yeah, now I kind of zoomed in and took us out of the picture because, again, you have the Burlington Northern. You have I don't want to say generic, but it was a corporate paint scheme that they adopted that changed throughout the years. Mm-hmm. But you've got a really neat one that you don't see very often paint scheme on this one SD40-2 7812.
Yeah, that I think there was only two like that with the large logo on the side and the Burlington Northern spelled out. It's kind of a shame that not any more units receive that scheme because I think it looks really nice. The whiteface scheme was a early 90s attempt to increase grade crossing visibility, and BN was trying different things at the time. They tried the tiger stripe scheme, which was the orange and black stripes. They were experimenting with strobe ditch lights at the time, trying to increase grade crossing safety. And the whiteface was sort of the final iteration of that, and it definitely produced mixed reviews, especially on like an SD9. It didn't really work for that kind of a locomotive, but for an SD40-2, it's just fine, I would say.
I remember seeing the whiteface pretty common in Illinois, probably about 25 years ago, and of course ST60Ms had that whiteface too, if I remember right. So really nice. Get your cascade green fix. So let's see. I think we got more green too, but I don't think it's Burlington Northern.
It's a bit of a different green.
A little bit, yeah. This is. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm sure the folks from New York and that part of the country are going to say I'm wrong, but I'm going to say it's Oneida and Western.
Yeah, I've heard a couple different ways of saying it.
Now this is I'll be honest with you, this is one that I did not know anything about until we announced these. Tell us a little bit about this rather unique railroad we have in front of us here.
Yeah, so this is a dedicated unit train which was bought by Shamrock Coal Company to run a plant to mine operation, or mine to plant, or it was a shuttle train between the two. These units were built in '79, and they were tacked onto a Louisville and Nashville order. So what you get with these is L&N style features, like the bell on the side of the hood and the gyro light up between the number boards there. And they ran these units. Usually it was a 3 or 4 unit set, and they had bathtub style coal gondolas that they would run these unit trains with. It was a pretty neat operation.
Yeah, and like you said before, even though they were built to L&N standards, they were not former L&N units. They were built specifically for the O&W.
Right, exactly. And I think we'll be offering the coal cars to go with these in a month or two. So if you're interested in building up that train, then keep your eyes out for those.
Yeah, that would definitely be one that if you're part of a modular group or you've got the club layout, if you were to run that with the necessary coal cars, yeah, you would definitely get some attention. We're getting some comments now. They're saying, "Man, that color green is different," and it really is. It is kind of like a shamrock green color.
Yeah, it kind of makes you pay attention to it, even if you're not interested in it. You're like, oh wow, that's kind of cool.
That is definitely different. Well, let's see. We'll zoom in on those a little bit, and then, and like I said earlier last week, everything that we're showing to you today, you've got till the end of September. You got September 25th. You can go ahead and place your pre-orders with your dealer, and you know these type of locomotives here, the O&Ws. They'll go fast, and you'll want to get one if you are interested in it. So this is a line that I've heard of, but only in 1/87th scale. Is this a lease unit, Janek?
Well, it could be whatever you want it to be. This is an Athearn 75th anniversary offering that we have here. We celebrated our 60th anniversary. Well, it was about 14 or 15 years ago, if I count correctly. So based on that date, our 75th will be in 2022. So 75 years of Athearn trains. And we just wanted to kind of celebrate that a little bit by offering this unit here. And one of my goals with this, yes, it's for collectors mostly. But if you're an operator, I didn't want to make some hokey looking weird thing that you wouldn't actually see on a railroad. We tried to follow railroad practice as far as the decoration and the details with this unit. We did things that would make sense. And so that being said, you could run this in a consist as a leaser, and it wouldn't look totally out of place.
Yeah, it's a for all intents and purposes, it's a fantasy scheme, but it's based on, like you said, what real world companies would do. They're not going to necessarily do something extremely ornate. In today's world, a lot of the graphics would be vinyl, but it's a very believable paint scheme. It looks like something that you would see, and you know there have been times too that we've seen life imitate models. We've seen specific boxcars and locomotives done to represent our hobby. So yeah, it's a good point. It's a little bit of a fantasy, but it's definitely based in reality. I mean, it's a scale SD40-2 with just as much detail as the other ones that we looked at earlier. But it's in this really cool paint scheme, and I'm sure this one's going to be pretty popular because you know a lot of us here that have a lot of Athearn locomotives in our collection, so might as well add to it. Now, yeah. Did you design this paint scheme, Janet?
I did not design this paint scheme. I sort of worked with the art department and told them the colors that I wanted to use and the logos that I wanted to use, and they pretty much did the rest.
So it was a team effort by Team Athearn, and it looks stunning. It looks really, really good. So make sure the wife isn't listening. Yep, I got one on pre-order. So don't. Oh, I just remember we. This will be up and available. She doesn't know where the channel is. I'm good. Well, I mean that is really cool. We got some really neat stuff that is coming in. I mean, the SD40-2s, that's a popular locomotive anyway. It's probably one of the most popular 6-axle locomotives out there. They went on for years. In fact, If you go to some of my stomping grounds out here in Galesburg, they use them as for the hump yard. So I've got some pictures here today too, specifically on SD40-2s. I'll share with you guys. These are, again, Tony Cook from White River was nice enough to share the collection from Kevin Udaley. And let me see about getting those up for us to look at. And I know, Janek, you've got a picture that you mentioned earlier you'd like to have us take a look at too.
I've got something relevant. It's not going to be any magazine cover winning stuff, but
well, we're always wanting to see new things. So let's see if I can find these pictures here.
Yeah, I saw a lot of different requests for other road names on the SD40-2 in the comments section. If you guys want us to make something, it always helps if we have good photos. Please feel free to send us anything that you have. I saw some requests for ATSF. I saw requests for LNN. I think I saw one for NKT. I saw one for ICG. All that duly noted. But if you got photos, please, send them our way.
All right. Well, we got some pictures now. So let me make this bigger so we can see. Some of these are from slides, so they're a little bit smaller than normal. But I'm going to blow this up. All right. Well, this first one here is a Burlington Northern SD40-2, 6358. This was taken in 1995 out of Herman, Oklahoma. A really nice picture there. You've got a white face on the lead, followed by the previous paint scheme that Burlington Northern had. That was the scheme they came out with right after they became a corporate entity.
Right.
And a bit of trivia. I know Janek knows this. I will ask the question for the group, and if I see the answer, I'll give you a shout out. When Burlington Northern was formed, they would put that barricade stripe on the nose of the unit. What did that barricade stripe do other than visibility? What did that designate? Give me an answer out there, and I'll throw a shout out for you with the answer. But we'll continue with it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's that's from reading all of Jim Boyd's books on the BN. So the next picture, bring this up. This one hits close to home. This one here, this is in Savannah, Illinois, 1996. In fact, I was probably rail fanning up at this time. Savannah, Illinois is up northern part of the state. And this is a really pretty line. Goes from all the way down to Galesburg and goes all the way up to Minneapolis, if I remember right, through Wisconsin. This was taken by Howard Andy. And again, this was Savannah, Illinois. Another white face. This is BN number 7827. And
okay. Looks like some kind of U-boat as the second unit there. I can't really tell from this distance.
It looks like a U-boat of some type. I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to see, but it's also proof positive that Illinois is not just cornfields and flats. There is some terrain. So that's a nice one to show.
Yes, debunking the myth.
That's right. Continuing with the BN theme. And I didn't choose these, but I think Tony knows I like Cascade Green. Yeah, this is a great shot. I like the way the sun hit the lead unit. The lead unit here being 8002. This is in I believe it's pronounced Bailston, Wisconsin. This is a Mike Cleary photo taken in 1991. Really cool
nice
bridge shot. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I miss the days of shooting pictures like this. You know, seeing the Spartan cab white face with that big BN logo on the nose. It's really cool.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the one we're offering, or that was the other one that was painted in that scheme.
You know what? You're right. If you look, you see it spelled out on the long hood here. So, absolutely, good eye. And looks like he's got 3 additional units behind him from the looks of that picture. But man, what a great shot! I mean,
that's cool.
That's almost a corporate picture right there.
Calendar. Right. Yeah.
So just to prove that I didn't bring just Burlington Northern items in here, I've got something a little bit north. And this one's only 1 number off from the one we're offering, I think. Aren't we doing 776?
Yep, this is right next to it in production and family, so exactly the same details.
Yeah. So we've got we've got CP number 777. This was taken by Dale Z back in 1993. So this paint scheme, I wouldn't say it was brand new in '93, but it was relatively new at this point. And looks like she's got a little bit of weathering on her, but for the most part, she is in pretty good shape.
Well, I like that you point out the weathering. When most people talk about weathering diesels, they are really piling on the rust and the dirt, and you don't really need to do too much for it to look right, for it to look like it's in service. Just mostly the underframe, a little bit up on the battery box door and the roof. But the sides and the nose, I mean, look at the nose. It's still sparkling clean. So,
yeah, I mean, it really depends on a lot of different things, and it's really handy when you do your weathering if you can. You know, find a picture, whether it be online or you know, a book of your favorite railroad line. That really offers a lot of help in you know, getting your weathering to look authentic. And like you said, I mean, this one is, you've got a little bit of dust on the sides and such, but I could still see a little bit of gloss on the front of that nose. So that is it's a beautiful locomotive.
It tends to stay clean where the crew members brush up against it as they walk by.
Exactly. Now here's a cool shot. If you look carefully in the back, we'll see something that we announced back in June. This looks like a P42 back there.
Sure does, although if you are paying attention, we have not announced phase 4 yet, so maybe this is the sign of things to come.
It could be. It could be, I don't know.
There's a lot of good here. I mean, there's I count at least 2 or 3 different paint schemes in this one shot.
That's yeah, you know, I remember the second one here with the barricades. That was real popular when I was younger in New England, and that's a really neat shot. This one here, I failed to mention, this is unit number 785, and this was taken in Albany, New York in 2000. So just about 20 years ago. It doesn't seem like that was 20 years ago, but and again, that locomotive there, it's got a little bit of dust, a little bit dirtier than the other one that we showed earlier, but for the most part, CP seemed to keep their stuff relatively clean.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of completely trashed CP units, although some of these units in the later years started to really fade, almost to a pink color.
That's true. So last that I've got from Tony Cook is this guy here, and it's the NDM. And I don't see, at least I don't get to see a lot of pictures in this scheme. It's a neat scheme. It's that two-tone blue, and it's what is that, an orange or a red? I can't really tell, Janek.
It's dark orange. Yeah, a really attractive scheme. I've never seen one this clean before. So that's really cool. I love the orange painted journal bearings on the trucks. That really sets it off.
And I noticed too, this one is so clean. Look at the trucks. Look at the fuel tank. It's pretty much from what I can see, it's still kind of glossy. So maybe this was this was taken in Fort Worth, Texas, in 1987 by James D. Spears.
Okay.
Just picture perfect. I mean, straight side shot. Really lets you see the details because it is so clean. I don't even think there's any dust on it at all. It's really, really cool. And so that's all I've got for prototype stuff. Did you have a picture that you wanted to share with us today?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, let me get this guy gone and let's see.
So one of the cool things about working for Athearn is that sometimes when I go out rail fanning, I can combine business and pleasure, so to speak. And if you look, this is at Colton. This is a well-known spot to a lot of people. This is the Pepper Avenue overcrossing. The second unit here is the 1574, which is the very same one that we're offering. And I was able to get detailed shots of this unit, and I was able to use them for my research. And when I'm the one doing the photography, I know what I'm looking for, so it makes it it makes it really nice.
Yeah, so that's probably going to be in your pre-order because you got the pictures of it. And
pictures of it. You see here the snoot nose 1703. We did snoot nose units in 2016 in this paint scheme, but I would expect us to do more of those at some point as well. And that is in November of 2017 that I took that.
So just recently.
Yep.
And even those units look pretty clean.
Yeah, these units are kept in good shape. They're used to move cuts of cars around the yard, and they're kept in good condition for the most part. So.
Very cool. So kind of like what BNSF does with their SD40-2s, they're kind of using them as a switcher.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
And it's kind of amazing that we're seeing something that used to be, road power 20 years ago, now being used as a yard goat for all intents and purposes. But the cars and machinery and everything else are getting bigger. I mean, you don't see as many of the little switchers as we used to, say, 30, 40 years ago. So, if you're running modern BNSF, these BN ones will definitely fit. Obviously, the UP ones will fit if you're doing any type of modern work, and you've got some type of classification yard or hump yard or anything like that. You're going to want to pick up a few of these because they usually run those, like you were saying, they run those in a pair or more, don't they?
Yeah, sets of 3 is what they usually run there. But I've seen sets of 2 on locals. So
yeah, that's the other thing too. Is a lot of these lines are using these for locals, where in the past they would have been Jeep 9s or even 38-2s. They're using these SDs. So, well, really cool. Thanks for all the info, and I'm sure our fans out there are excited about this release of SD40-2s, especially that anniversary one, and thanks for showing that picture.
Sure.
I've been looking while we've been talking. I haven't seen a correct answer yet on the BN question. I'll give it a little bit more time, but I think what we can do is do some virtual rail fanning. We've got Kansas City, Missouri hooked up today, so
I thought I saw the correct answer in there, actually.
Did you? Okay.
Let me
let you find it.
Let me see if I can find it again.
All right.
Because I got to go back to those comments. 1:58 p.m. Bradley Ogden. Is that the correct answer?
Let's see.
And if I'm wrong, then I get an F for the day.
Let's see. You said it was Brandon, right?
Bradley.
Or Bradley's. My apologies. You said that was at 1:58?
58.
Let's see.
And the question was, what is the meaning of those diagonal safety stripes on the BN units other than, increased visibility?
Right. Let's see. Still scrolling a little bit, almost there. Okay. Yes, Bradley, here, I'll show it here for you. It says front end. And you're right. So what happened is when the Burlington Northern came into being after taking Northern Pacific, Great Northern, CB&Q, Spokane, Portland, and Seattle, they still had a lot of locomotives that say like an RS3. Mm-hmm. And Janek will know that an RS3 can be operated as safe as New York Central. The short end would be the front, or if it was, say, the Boston and Maine, the long end would be the front. Same held true with the railroads out west. So suddenly you had CB&Q employees running Northern Pacific locomotives and vice versa. So it was a little confusing at first. So BN's answer to that was they put the barricade stripes on the side of the locomotive that designated what end was the front, and therefore what side the controls were facing. So there you go. Bradley, you get a shout out. Congratulations. You get to win a prize, and that is I'm going to show the railfan camera. And like I said, we're in Kansas City.
That Joe Schramm was before him. I didn't see that one, so if we missed it, sorry about that. I didn't see. Bradley was the one I saw first, but who knows if my feed is getting updated at the same speed as everyone else's.
That could be too, but good eye on that because things were moving pretty quick. So not much going on right now.
I have never seen it this empty.
Yeah, I mean, when I was setting up earlier, there was some activity, but we'll give it a little bit. We can answer some questions. I did see someone ask earlier about N scale, and N scale is something that we certainly do. We'll be talking a little bit about N scale in a future Train Tuesday. So we haven't forgotten about you guys. And as you probably well know, that I do N scale as well. So let's see what we've got.
Let's go over that big boy question, if you remember.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Go ahead, Janek. Yeah, somebody was asking about the big boy releases.
Yeah, it was actually before the video started, and my comments don't go back that far enough. But I do have an update on the HO scale big boys because that was the question. The question was, is there any update on the HO scale big boys? So the update is, let's see, they arrived to the port over the weekend, and they're expected to ship from the DC around September 25th, if all goes well in their transit. So there you go.
Not
before the end of the month.
Yeah, not too long at all. So that's good. Some comments coming in. Got one. It's more of a comment. Gordon, I wonder what line he models. He says, need MRL SD45-2 an early paint scheme. That's a neat line. I will admit, if you can't see it because it's unscaled, but behind me I've got a Montana rail link I painted years ago. Do we have the necessary tooling, would that be an option in the future, you think, Janek?
It depends if they have ditch lights or not. As many people know, we cannot put ditch lights on the 45-2. In the past, we have included them separately in the box. I'm not really sure how people feel about that. I've never actually seen any feedback about that. So we'll have to look into that. We have done MRL though, and they were popular, so that might be enough of a push to do them again in the earlier scheme.
Yeah, no, that's a cool railroad, kind of almost like a blue version of the Burlington Northern paint scheme, but definitely a really neat railroad.
Definitely. Let's see. There's one from Christoph Grimm at 213 about SPSF rolling stock, which is something I'm interested in, of course.
Yes. Let's see. Sorry about that. My screen keeps freezing, but yeah, that's something that I wouldn't say would be a that's something that we could probably work on. I wouldn't think it would be too far out of the realm. It's just a matter of, putting it in the queue, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he was asking if they are prototypically correct or are they fantasy schemes. And the answer is that they are fantasy schemes. There was never any SPSF painted revenue rolling stock. That being said, we have done some boxcars recently painted up in the full SPSF as if that merger had gone through successfully. And they sold just as well as any of the prototypical paint schemes that we offered. So if people like that stuff, and it seems like they do, then we will continue to offer it.
Yeah, it kind of brings up a neat point too. I've seen some modelers do I guess you'd call it a different timeline. What if that railroad had existed, or what if the BNSF never happened? So they model their segment as if it was modern day or current day, as if, actual history never happened. That's kind of cool. You're starting to see a little bit more of that. It kind of gives you a nice cross of prototype modeling with some freelance thrown in.
I've seen some guys on Facebook. One of them's doing a modern Penn Central. One of them is doing a modern New York Central. So when you see a lightning stripe on an SD70 Ace, that just looks really cool. And there's some really great modeling going on there. Even though it's not prototypical, it's still great modeling.
Yeah, no, it's kind of fascinating too. It really gets into an interesting discussion too. Now here's one that's near and dear to my heart. Rock Island GP40-2 in both red and yellow and blue and white. Now, Rock Island to me was the Boston and Maine of the Midwest. And what he's talking about is back in the 70s, one of their 40-2s in the original fire engine red and yellow was involved in a grade crossing accident. And so they took the unit up to Silvis and they fixed it.
Okay.
And if you probably can't see it again because it's N scale, it's behind me, but I actually have one of these in N scale I painted a number of years ago. When they repaired it, they painted the front in the then current blue and white, the rock paint scheme, and they painted the back nose portion in the blue and white, but the middle of the locomotive is still in the red and yellow. And
oh wow,
it's been called everything from the Frankenstein to the unintentional bicentennial locomotive. It's kind of a neat locomotive, and I'm sure it's something that we could probably look into. It would definitely look cool with a couple of different variations, because as you know, that Rock Island, they had all kinds of different variations on a paint scheme.
They had a paint scheme for every day of the week, it seems.
Oh, let's see.
There was someone asking for BNSF slab cars. I thought that was an interesting comment. Jason at 2:18 p.m. I was just down in the port the other day, and I was right next to where they load those cars up, and I see those trains fairly often, and it doesn't look like a complicated project. And unit train cars are great because to make a train you have to buy a lot of them, which is great when you have to sell them to justify making them. We could do loads, different kind of loads to go with the slab cars as well. So no, I think that's an interesting idea, and I'm willing to look into it.
Definitely. And before going on, Bradley just corrected me, and he's absolutely right. They did Rock Island did not have GP40-2s. They were just straight 40s. I apologize. It was a few years ago that I painted that locomotive. Let's see. I saw one here that I wanted to bring up that looked like a really good question. Let's see. Where'd it go? Here we go. Stephen has a question for us. BNSF Diffco side dump cars. That sounds like a lot of new tooling, isn't it?
It does, but if we can get our hands on one of them in real life to measure it, then anything is possible. I know that we're working on a couple of different cars right now that we have been able to access and measure, because that's the big thing that we need is those measurements. So, and yeah, like you were saying, Rock Island had GP40s, which is another model which we're very interested in pursuing, and we're investigating it quite heavily. I know Rock Island, Milwaukee Road had a bunch of them. You've got New York Central, and you've got 8 of them on Cotton Belt. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch. I think C&W had a bunch as well, so GP40 would be a good one.
Another interesting one that would definitely get comments would be the experimental CB&Q Jeep 40 they did in the Cascade Green.
Oh.
And, you remember they did the SD45s in the Cascade Green with the chevron style stripes, but it didn't have the Burlington Northern logo on it. It just said Burlington. But for whatever reason, the Jeep 40 actually has it actually had the BN logo above the battery doors, and but it just said Burlington. And
yeah,
it's a CB&Q locomotive, but it's in Cascade Green. It's kind of a cool color.
Yeah, they never actually filled in the Northern. From what I read, and I thought that was interesting because that would have been a neat paint scheme, sort of inspired by the hockey stick scheme. But it was, well, not inspired by it; it came before the hockey stick scheme. But I always liked that scheme.
Really cool scheme. I mean, the '70s, the late '60s, and early '70s really did give us some great paint schemes. Let's see. Got one from David asking, let's see, come on, Internet.
I'll go ahead and throw that one up on the screen too, just so we can see it. See that people can see what we're talking about. And this one's on archives, so it should be fine.
Kansas City looks a little slow today. I don't think we've had anything come by. Let's see. I'm going to add your picture here. There it is. Now, that's funny that you show that, Janek. That's very similar to the picture that I saw from Jim Boyd. And that looks like the same picture I used when I did my N-scale custom paint years ago. So just in GP40s, I mean, you could get some really cool paint schemes. Like I was saying before, that has the Burlington Northern logo on it, even though technically that is at that point a CB&Q locomotive.
Yeah, well, and then of course you've got CB&Q proper in the Chinese red. And
Let's see, we'll add that
as well.
Yeah, really an eye-catching paint scheme. That was one of the really nice paint schemes that came out in '57.
Introduced on the SD24s because, they wanted something more exciting for their turbocharged locomotives at that point.
'57 saw a lot of interesting and bold paint schemes, including, like you said, the Burlington on their SD24s, and Boston and Maine introduced a blue, black, and white McGinnis scheme in '57 as well. So started to see a slight change in how locomotives were really, marketing their roads. Let's see. I'm going to put that back up. Still nothing going on there in Kansas. Let's see. So yeah, we're getting some comments. I mean, I think people are looking for GP40s. And that's kind of neat in the Genesis line. I mean, we'll have to look into that.
I saw that Colin Mucha, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, at 225, he wants more Bethgon coal porters. And yeah, we are cooking something up for that. It's going to be a 2021 announcement probably, but stay tuned. And Ben Matchett at 226, he wants GTW GP18s in orange and blue and white. And yes, absolutely. Look for those in an upcoming run.
Yeah, those were real common at one time. I remember seeing those. Let's see. Got a request from Mitch. Let's see, get him up there. Wow, the comments are coming in so fast, I can't click fast enough.
C30-7s and C36-7s. That's an interesting comment. Yeah, those are models that you can't get a high-end version currently in plastic. So I know I'd like some BM C30-7s for my coal trains for sure.
Definitely. Let's see.
And yeah, to those who are asking, next week we will be going over the rolling stock in more detail, including the sugar beet service hopper cars, as well as all the other rolling stock that we announced in the current month.
Isaac says yes to straight 40s. Sounds like he's an Illinois Central fan. More high side thrall gons too. So, man, the only downside to this, Janek, is our fans are going to put you to work.
Well, hey, if it means I have a job tomorrow, then great. I will second that request for the MWCX scrap gons. I'll make sure we get that on the list for next time.
It's like the only motive power I've seen so far was some type of small SUV. Let's see if I can get a different camera. Yeah. Maintenance away van of some type. Let's see. Still getting a lot of requests on the Jeep 40, which is nice. It was a very common locomotive. They were kind of a workhorse of many, many different roads.
And it seemed to be rebuilt to a lot of subsequent owners for that engine.
Here's one close to my neck of the woods. Daniel's asking about Boston to Maine GP18 and NYSW GP18s. We've had a few comments on the GP18s. Boston and Maine, yeah, they had the GP18s originally in the McGinnis paint scheme. They didn't go too deep in the order, just enough to supplement their Jeep 9s they had ordered at 57. Mm-hmm. And of course, those were low nose. Now, the thing about the GP18 was, like Rock Island, they had high hood GP18s, and say Boston and Maine, they had low hood GP18s that were done from the factory. They weren't a field kit of any type. We've done some GP18s in the past. I don't know. We can probably think about, see what we could do about those in the future.
The low nose units tended to have the revised underframe placement of the air tanks alongside the fuel tank. And that's something that we would need to tool so that we could do that version. The NYS&W had those. Most of the low nose units were like that as well. But it'd be worth doing. You got Norfolk Southern, original gray and red and black. I know that Mopac had some, and there was that one TP&W unit, and there was a bunch of others as well.
Well, looks like we're right at 4:30. Want to thank you all for stopping in today. Sorry our rail fanning didn't turn out to be much of anything. Maybe next week we'll have a little bit more luck. And as always, if you have questions or comments, we do read your comments and we try to answer them as quick as possible. Janet, do you got any closing thoughts before we move on?
Well, like I say with every video, please don't take it personally if we didn't answer your comment or question. There's just not enough time in an hour to do 100 or 200 plus comments, but we do read them all and we do take them all seriously, especially the requests for things that we can produce where it's just a new paint scheme or something we've done in the past that you want to see us make again. Yeah, that's not hard to do for us at all. So keep them coming. We like to hear what you guys want us to make. And thanks for tuning in. And we'll be back next week with more fun and games.
All right. Well, thanks, Janek, for coming in and talking to us again. And thank you, everybody out there. Again, we love your comments. We read what you're sending to us, and we will do our best to make sure everybody is getting the models that they want. Don't forget, September 25th is the due date for your dealers to order those SD40-2s or the previous releases we've talked about. We will be back next Tuesday. We'll talk a little bit about some of the freight cars that we're going to be offering and some more neat prototype picks, as well as some rail fanning. Until then, have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and high greens, everybody.
Stay out of the fires if you're out west, because it's crazy out here.
Till next time, everybody. Take care.